Today, our global micro view addresses carbon tax and the impact a carbon tax could have on your equity investments. Climate change drives a lot of policy initiatives. This will likely include one day a global carbon tax. When companies and people consume fresh water, they pay for it. When companies and people consume fresh air, they don't pay for it yet. Current carbon credits and offsetting schemes have significant limitations and don't produce enough results in terms of reduction in emissions. Therefore, the question is not if, but when a global carbon tax will be introduced. When this happens, one question out of many is what will be the impact on your investments. More specifically, impact on profits and impact on general inflation. First, impact on profits. We cover in our research the 6,000 world's largest public companies. They represent 31% of world total emissions, the rest being smaller companies, non-public companies, governments, including very important the military, and you and I. If a carbon tax of $100 per metric ton of greenhouse gases was paid by each of these 6,000 companies, their aggregate pre-tax profit would drop by 19%. We test here a carbon tax of $100 because 100 is close to the current spot price of carbon credits, and a sort of midpoint between 50 and 200 that is suggested by different experts as a fair or necessary carbon tax. 19% impact on pre-tax profit is surely an aggregation. Impact on companies would vary depending on the nature of their businesses. Some would face an invisible impact. Some would see their profit being wiped out, exposing them in theory to a bankruptcy risk. About 270 companies would be exposed to this scenario of loss-making due to carbon tax. These companies are mostly in energy, materials, transportation, and utilities. Measuring impact on profits is one way to control your equity risk of a carbon tax. However, it would be very naive to expect companies to pay such tax and suffer from the erosion of their profits. What companies will surely do when the tax is implemented is to increase prices charged to their customers, at least partly. How the split will happen, nobody knows. But we know that the general price increase to offset the carbon tax of $100 currently stand at 1.9%. Though here again, 1.9% is an aggregation, some prices would increase more. For example, your airline tickets could go up 9.2% if you are an American. This is measured on 10 airlines with a price increase ranging from 6 to 18% depending on the company. For Europeans, the required price increase would be 11%. If you fly from or in Asia, your ticket price would have to increase by 14% to pass on the carbon tax to travelers. Another example is chemical products. Their prices would globally increase by 8%, but with a very large dispersions that is rather company specific. Finally, your utility bill would increase by 23% for 15 companies if you are in Asia, 14% in Americas, and only 8% if you are in Europe, but this doesn't take into account German utilities because they are not public companies. Ultimately, the assumption is that the carbon tax can contribute to reduce demand for high-emission businesses, and a carbon tax should be used to finance low-emission solutions. How to do that will be addressed another time. But today, our conclusion as investors is that we measure and control our sensitivity to various risks. These risks include carbon tax risk on profits and also the more macro risk of structural inflation that is driven by many factors, including our focus last month on the de-Chinization and also more regulation that we partly address today.